The second problem that a real-life implementation of this ideal would face is information. To allocate this, you need to have information on preferences. You need to have information on technology, so what is feasible to do. And you need to have information about endowments. So how many, and I mean by this like the supply of raw materials and inputs that you have to work with. If you don't know that, you can't figure out the optimal thing to do. But the challenge is that in a real world implementation, there's no reason to believe all this information is available to you. Preferences are locked inside consumers' heads, okay? How do you get them out? Especially if you need to know about lots of different possible combinations of goods and so on, okay? You can survey them, but that costs money and they may have cost time for them, and so that's actually a kind of a wasted resource. If we didn't have to do that, that would be better. Maybe they have an intention to misrepresent their preferences, okay? They could, for example, misrepresent how intensely they need something because they know that that will ensure that they get what they want. In the example earlier, I said, suppose Alice really needs this outcome where we end up with lots of food because she's got a medical condition, whereas Bob only sort of cares about having a big house and he doesn't really mind. But what if Bob lies because he just doesn't care about Alice and he just wants a really big house and he says, no, if I don't get it, it'll kill me, you know? That's a silly example, but in the real world, this thing could become more severe. Similar issues plague technology. How do you act like, do firms really know their exact isoquants? And if they do know all the production possibilities for every different possible combination of goods, are they willing to share that information with a centralized authority? What if they are not working hard because what if they claim that they need a lot of capital because they just actually don't want to put in labor, they don't want to work hard, and it's easy for them to supervise? Or maybe they claim the opposite, that they need a ton of labor, but they're all just sort of laying around. How do you get them to sort of truthfully disclose their actual capabilities in a cost-efficient manner? This is like a real problem, okay? In the Soviet Union, they had lots of different goods to keep track of, and one issue they had was, how do you specify, for example, every different kind of bolt or nut that you might need? And so instead of giving lots of detailed answers, they just sort of talked about the size, like the total weight of nuts or bolts that you need, and that creates like an incentive to just create huge, big bolts or nuts that aren't really useful but satisfy the criteria. Okay, so like if you lack really good information, it can be hard to do anything really useful. And the third is the endowments. What if people don't want to share what they think is theirs, or they found something, or they have hidden reserves of energy and talent that they'd like to conceal? Again, you need access to all this information to do this efficiently, and you need a mechanism for people to want to truthfully disclose this at low cost. If you can get that, you're going to do better than a system where you have to survey and like monitor people and make sure they're not lying and so on and so forth.